Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Football Chemist, where we use data and analysis to go through football's biggest talking points without confusing you with all that technical jargon. On today's episode, we'll be talking about all things Arsenal and whether they really do need a new striker. Their issues in attack were especially exposed yesterday when they lost 2-0 at Newcastle, knocking them out of the Carabao Cup semi-finals in the process. Havertz's indifferent performance in this match increased the pressure on him even further, but as things stand, he is Arsenal's only fit, recognised striker, with Gabriel Jesus out with a long-term knee injury. However, is Havertz really to blame for why Arsenal are struggling to compete on all fronts? Is he the reason why Arsenal have not won a major trophy since the FA Cup in 2020? Can Kai Havertz be leading the line as Arsenal win a title or a Champions League, for example? Or do Arsenal need to improve in other areas of the pitch in order to make that step from second place to first place in the Premier League? Let's get into it. So to start off with, what is holding Arsenal back? Because it's clear that they are a very, very good team. They have finished second in the league in the last two seasons and have only been pipped by a Manchester City team who was one of the best that the Premier League has ever seen. And I use the word was there because Arsenal really put down a statement when they beat City 5-1 last weekend. However, yesterday against Newcastle, it looked like all of that progress had just been reversed. Because whilst they did score 5 against City, it is worth noting that City were the architects of their own destruction in that match, gave the ball away too much, so it's easy for Arsenal to get all of the goals that they did. Also, one result does not mean that a problem is fixed. They lost 4-0 to Newcastle on aggregate, and to go 180 minutes in a key semi-final and not score a goal, especially when you're the favourite, is a really glaring problem. And we know their defence is talented, so the problem must be in attack, and it is evident when you look at some of their stats. For example, they are 7th in the league for expected goals so far this season, joint 7th actually with Brentford. A club like Arsenal, who want to be winning titles, winning major trophies, winning the Champions League, need to up this. And the reason why they are really lacking in attack and why their expected goals are so low is quite simply because they are not taking enough shots. Arsenal are far too shot shy. They are 10th in the Premier League for shots taken this season. They're below Crystal Palace, who spent much of the start of the season fighting relegation. When you combine the fact that they are a bit shot shy with the fact that they have got the lowest average distance from goal for each shot taken, those two stats put together really showcase Arsenal's difficulties. They are not taking enough shots because they are trying too hard to generate the perfect chance, and sometimes you do need to be a bit risky, especially when Arsenal come up against stubborn defences, low blocks and teams that really make it difficult for you to generate any real space in the penalty area. And not only are the raw numbers behind their XG a problem, but the distribution of XG throughout their matches raises further alarms. If we take a look at this graph, the problem is evident. As you can see here, this red line for Arsenal is dropping well below that of Liverpool in the turquoisey, acre colour, City and Chelsea in the light and dark blue respectively. If we ignore the extremities of this graph where I've ranked each individual match from highest to lowest in terms of XG, you're always going to get wayward results at the extremities, but if we look at the centre, we can really see how Arsenal consistently average about half an expected goal less than their rivals in each match. This is not sustainable because half an expected goal can be the difference between a win and a draw and a loss, especially as the Premier League is getting so tight from the top 10, top 12, even top 14. You need to be having a bigger difference in your XG. To compound this, Arsenal have only scored 2 or more expected goals in 6 of their 24 league matches this season. In comparison, Liverpool have done 16 and 23, City have scored 12 and 24, and Chelsea have scored 13. So to be half of your rivals, or even worse, is worrying when you want to be in a title fight. And what's going to annoy Arsenal even more about this graph is that they're not similar to the modern Big Four, they're actually more similar to Spurs. And given Spurs' position in the table, and given that it's Spurs, Arsenal do not want to be in this position. So we know Arsenal have got a problem with generating chances and scoring goals, but let's dig a little further into it and to see why this is an issue. The problem that Arsenal have is they do not have a genuine source of consistent goals, and this is illustrated when we look at this graph here. What this shows is the distribution of goals for Arsenal this season in terms of possession. As you can see, you've got some nice peaks in defence, and this is a very useful source of goals. A lot of criticism has been made about the fact that Arsenal are reliant on set pieces, and this is almost boring football. But these goals cannot be undervalued. The problem comes if you're over-reliant on them, and that is the problem with Arsenal. because if we look at the second half of this graph and the attackers, there's no one stepping out and really leading the line. When you compare this with the pace setters in the league this year, Liverpool, you can see Liverpool have got many sources of goals in attacks. They don't need their defenders to be getting any goals. They are getting it through different attackers. You've got 5 or 6 players out there who are getting over 0.4 expected goals a game. Between them, they'll go get at least 2 goals per game for you on a very consistent basis. Sometimes you can rely on an out-and-out goal scorer, which is why Arsenal are looking for a striker. Like City had last year, you can see the big peak for Haaland, but you even had players like Foden contributing. And the problem with only having one out-and-out goal scorer is when they're not firing, you do seem to notice it, like City have felt this season. And that is why I don't think getting an out-and-out striker solves all of Arsenal's problems. For comparison to other title-winning teams, if we look at City in the 2018-19 season, they had an out-and-out goal scorer like Aguero, who was also backed up by his wingers, by his attacking midfielders as well. And this is the perfect balance you get. You've got a player who will get you a goal every other game at the very least, but when he's not on song, you've got other players to pick up the slack. However, I think the team that Arsenal need to focus on the most, in terms of a model that they can try and fit, is Liverpool in the 2019-20 season. Here, they were reliant on their wingers for the goals, and a centre-forward didn't actually get amongst the goals that much. Arsenal could do this, and Havertz could be the guy to be that false 9, just like Roberto Firmino was for Liverpool back in that Klopp era. But is Havertz good enough to be that false 9? Let's take a closer look at him as a player. Havertz is only in his second season for Arsenal, and he has still achieved a lot in what has been quite a short career, given that he is only 25. He's already a Champions League winner, scoring the winning goal in the final, and he has adapted well to Arsenal's system. And whilst not always dominating in the stats, he contributes a lot to Arsenal's game. When we look at his profile, we see that he is a very good passer, and he's also quite good in the air. His extra height helps here, so his hold-up play is very important. And these are 2 essential skills of any false 9. He needs to receive the ball, drop between the defence and the midfield whilst the wingers push up and cut in and provide more of the goals than Havertz necessarily does. And if we go back to this graph of Liverpool's goal distribution in the 2019-20 season, you can see that Firmino didn't actually get that many goals. It was Salah and Sadio Mane who got most of the goals. And so Havertz does not need to be the out-and-out goal scorer that Arsenal are looking for in the market. Because when we compare Havertz side by side with Firmino, we can see that he is actually getting more expected goals and more goals per 90 minutes than Firmino between 2017 and 2020, which was his prime era as well. Looking closer at the numbers, you can see in many metrics, there's not much to split the 2 players. Firmino is arguably a better passer and assister, but Havertz's interceptions are crucial for someone who needs to be pressing high up the pitch and winning the ball back. Havertz is really good at this, and this shouldn't be understated either. In a top team, you need to have your attackers pressing the defence, forcing errors, because opposition will come to the Emirates, sit deep, and so you need to force them into an error. Havertz is going through a bit of a blip, and he will miss chances. He doesn't always pass the eye test, as we saw against City, as we even saw against Newcastle yesterday. He misses big chances, and he does need to work on this, but I'd suggest that that is more recency bias, and his overall trend as an Arsenal player shows that he does have the skills to be a false 9. So if Havertz isn't the problem, who is in the Arsenal team? For me, I'd point to the left flank. Saka is more than fine on the right flank, and you can rely on him to get 20 plus goals per season if he stays fit. Arsenal have struggled in his absence, but hopefully they can get him fit and firing next season, and so this won't be an issue anymore. Also, when he has come into the team this season in Saka's absence, Ethan Nwaneri has looked deadly, and he is almost the perfect replacement for Saka. They both love to cut in on their favoured left foot, wrap their foot around the ball on the edge of the area, and generate chances and goals, and that is how Saka and Nwaneri as well are developing into top players who can be world class. We need to look on the left flank for where the issues are, because between them, Trossard and Martinelli are not doing enough to provide the goals. This is where Arsenal really differ from the other teams in the big 4, that is City, Chelsea, Liverpool and Arsenal, who have been the 4 leading teams this season and who we can expect to consistently challenge at the top in the coming years. When we look at the XG per forward, we see here that Liverpool and City have got leading goal scorers in Salah and Haaland respectively. Chelsea though, whilst they don't have a leading goal scorer, they've got a lot of players up there. They've got 3rd, 4th and 5th, showing that they've got many different sources of expected goals. And the fact that City do have an out-and-out striker perhaps points to their struggles this season, because if they don't have Haaland firing, you see they do not have another source of goals, and that is why City have struggled. Arsenal, meanwhile, do not have anyone up here. Havertz is actually highest. He has gained 0.46 XG per 90, which isn't bad at all. But he has got no support from the left wingers either. Look at Martinelli and Trossard down here. They are far too low. One of them needs to be getting up and getting more chances, especially since Saka is also quite low here. But as we'll see later, this doesn't accurately represent what Saka brings to Arsenal. Because when we look at the shots per 90, we get a bit of a clearer picture. Again, you see Chelsea with 3 players in the top 6. Liverpool have got 4 in the top 10 or 11 there. City have got 3 in the top 10. What about Arsenal? They've only got 1 player up there, and that's Saka. Havertz is doing a decent job, which isn't bad if he is the false 9. But again, we look at the left wingers and they're not up there competing with the best in the league. If Arsenal want to be considered the best team in the Premier League, they need players who are considered the best in their position in the league. And unfortunately, neither Martinelli nor Trossard have staked their claim of being a leading left winger in the Premier League this season. When we look at Martinelli and Trossard individually, they both have their strengths. Martinelli, for example, is great at getting into the penalty area, and his goal scoring is improving, but I just don't think it's improving quickly enough. He doesn't do that defensive work that we talked about Havertz doing as well. He's not a great presser, and he is not a major contributor of assists either. Between this, it just doesn't look like Martinelli has the extra quality that Arsenal need to challenge Liverpool, to fight back this season and fight back in future seasons to try and win more major trophies. Trossard is almost the opposite. His pressing game is fantastic. He doesn't get into goal-scoring positions. So between them, you might find the perfect winger, but individually, they've just got too many flaws. Trossard, I think, is a great bench option, and we've seen how he can be very lethal from the bench and change games. He is not that player you need to consistently start games throughout a season who will win you trophies. So it's all well and good poking holes into Arsenal's team, but who can actually come into that left wing and make a difference? Having crunched the numbers and gone through some of the leading left wingers in Europe's top 5 leagues, I've come down to 2 main conclusions. That is Mathys Tel and Justin Kluivert. It seemed like a bit of a slap in the face yesterday to see Anthony Gordon performing so well, and I think he would come into that Arsenal team and improve it a lot, but I just don't see that move happening, especially since Gordon has signed a long-term contract. Let's start with Tel first, because this might be a bit of a strange one, given that he is currently on loan at Tottenham. Arsenal fans, let me know whether you would actually want a Tottenham player playing in your team next season. The key word there, though, is loan. He actually turned down a permanent move to Tottenham this January, so it's unlikely to see him staying beyond July. Arsenal can go into the market in the summer and try and poach him, and surely that would be such a big coup to steal someone that Tottenham so badly want as well, in terms of building up that North London rivalry. Tel brings goals. He's not been able to play that much for Bayern so far this season, but last year, which was his breakout year when he was only 18, he really did start to get amongst the goals, and this is what Arsenal sorely need in their team. He has got bags of potential, and you can really see him developing into a top player in the next 5 or 10 years. On the other hand though, he is not the finished product, and his youth might actually work against him. Arsenal aren't looking to win trophies in 5 years, they're not looking to win trophies in 3 years even. They're looking to win trophies, well, if they can this year, but mainly next year. If Arteta does not win the league or the Champions League next season, I think there will be serious questions about whether he is actually the right man for the job to bring Arsenal back to major trophy winning ways. Therefore, I think Arsenal should go for someone who is more ready, more Premier League proven, someone who can hit the ground running if they join this summer, and that's why I've chosen Justin Kluivert. Kluivert has been lighting up the league so far this season, and he doesn't just score penalties. He scores a lot of penalties, but he gets goals from open play as well. And his underlying numbers show that he can become a player who will get you 15 plus goals in the season, and that's all Arsenal need from a winger. Furthermore, he's Premier League proven. He might only be 23, but he's been around the block as well. He's played for Ajax, he's played for PSV, he's played for Roma, he's now playing for Bournemouth. He's played under a lot of different coaches, a lot of strong academies, known for building up young players, and he is really looking more and more like the finished product. Kluivert can come in this summer and make a difference in the Arsenal team. He'll also cost half the price of someone like Isak. So whilst Arsenal should be looking to spend big and buy the best of the best, they do also need to be pragmatic, especially if they invest in other areas in the pitch. He will need to up his assist numbers though, but fortunately he'll be in an Arsenal team that's already full of creativity. Him and Odegaard, I think, can really link up quite well in terms of Odegaard supplying chances to Kluivert and getting goals like that. especially if Kluivert's getting the goals, which gives Odegaard more freedom to focus on his passing game and creative play rather than being so dependent as a goal scorer, because he has struggled this season with his finishing, and he struggled especially against Newcastle, missing 2 good chances. So let's take a closer look at how Kluivert and Tel stack up against each other. When we look at the numbers, and I'm taking Tel from last season because we don't have enough data on him this season because he's not played enough for Bayern, Tel actually does have the edge over Kluivert in most stats. However, the reason why I'm going for Kluivert is because he's more proven, he's more of an out-and-out left winger. What I could see Arsenal doing is I could see them signing both of them this summer actually, because Tel's flexibility to play across the front three is also very useful, especially if Havertz hits another form slump. As I touched on before, Arsenal are lacking in options at striker right now, so they do need to get someone in just to even provide backup, because Havertz will not be able to play every single match even if he is playing well. And that's why someone like Tel, who's a utility player who can play different positions, could be quite key. But in terms of fixing the left wing option, I think Kluivert's got the experience to do it and give you that short-term gains. You can also get Tel in, who will give you the longer-term gains, but you're not so reliant on him to be a game changer next season. Unfortunately, I just do not think that Gabriel Martinelli has what it takes to be Arsenal's leading left winger in a title-winning team. We have seen him develop a lot over the years and he has become a very good player, but he is just missing that extra edge. Trossard, on the other hand, should stay on the squad. He is a very good rotation option, a very good bench option as well, and he can also come on off the bench in the last half an hour, and we've seen him do this so many times and been the difference between a draw and a win. That will also be important for Arsenal next season and in years to come, but they need him to be an option off the bench, not someone who you expect to regularly start. But what do you think? Do you think that Arsenal's problems would just be solved by getting an out-and-out striker like Isak, or do you think they need to invest somewhere else? Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and give this video a like if you like what you've seen. Feel free to subscribe as well if you want to see more content like this, and give us a follow on Instagram as well, where you'll see some behind the scenes content, including a blooper reel featuring that guy. I'll see you next week.